right, Bitcoin accumulation country, welcome back to the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. I'm your host, Phil, and we are in season 2, and this is episode 41. I hope everybody's doing well this evening. Got a really special guest, a gentleman by the name of Saint Bitcoin. Bitcoin plebs are going to be very familiar with him, but for those of you that aren't, he's a totally awesome Bitcoiner, and I just found him to be very positive and, just very enlightening and just well-spoken. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, I want to have this guy on my show, and I think that he's going to have a really great story to tell. And he definitely did not let us down. So it's going to be a really interesting show. And I also want to just remind everybody that we are no longer on Libsyn. We are now on Anchor.fm. So eventually my podcast is going to start appearing again on iTunes under Fun with Bitcoin Podcast. And also we have our merch on moedarags.com. You can find Fun with Bitcoin merchandise over there. Got some t-shirts, got some mugs, got some phone cases. If you want to support the show, it's a great way to do it. Check it out. Anyways, without further ado, here is my awesome interview with Saint Bitcoin. All right, Bitcoin accumulation country, thank you for joining me. This is the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. Joining me tonight is the host of BTC Pleb Talk podcast, Saint Bitcoin. And I met Saint Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Pleb Telegram group, and I just find him to be a really remarkable guy. I just find him to be positive and well-spoken, and even though I find him to be a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist, he's very welcoming. You know, he's good toxic. So without further ado, Saint Bitcoin, man, what's up?
Yo, what is going on?
It is awesome to have you, man. This is crazy.
Dude. Yeah, man, I'm extremely grateful to be on your podcast today, to be on an episode. I've gotten to listen to you in the past. You know, we interact on Twitter and on Telegram, and you're a great dude as well. And hey, man, I appreciate the time.
Cool, man. I'm super happy to have you on. I just, like I said in my intro, it just, reading through, going back and forth with you and talking, like I could see you're like a super deep guy, and I feel that like, you get Bitcoin, and I absolutely, heard you on your intro podcast, and I could see that there's good things coming, and I wanted to have you on my podcast and, expose the listeners to Saint Bitcoin.
Nice, dude.
So
awesome, man.
So, man, let's dive into it. I always start this off with the rabbit hole story. How did Saint Bitcoin, before Bitcoin, how did you become Saint Bitcoin?
Oh, well, let me tell you, man, because I got a freaking rabbit hole story for you, okay? I'm Saint Bitcoin maximalist, hodler of last resort. I live in America, and I love my country. I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to be here. I'm a proud gun owner. I love my Second Amendment, and I love my guns. I'm a carnivore. I love devouring that delicious red meat. And I'm a fundamental Christian in my beliefs regarding spirituality and values and stuff like that. And just going back to what you said as we first started off our podcast, when you really do get to spend some time with some of these Bitcoiners, you really get to realize that they're great people. They got great family values and stuff like that. And they really believe that Bitcoin is better money. It's the future of money, and they're putting their time and energy in that to better themselves and the people around them.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So let me get into this rabbit hole story, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I think it's funny that on the last podcast episode that I did, I featured Nick Can't Mine Young Nick. I think it's funny that I called Nick Young Nick because I'm actually only a few years older than him. I'm pretty young. I started my journey actually in 2016, and it wasn't with Bitcoin specifically, but it was almost like that red pill realization of our financial system and the economy and economics and history and the lies and the deception and the corruption and all of that stuff like that. So in 2016, my journey actually started in the stock market, and from there, my journey actually went to gold and silver. And it was kind of like a process of enlightenment. You know, I went from stocks to gold and silver to shit coins to Bitcoin. You know, it's like a process of monetary enlightenment. And
That's
and
awesome.
and so yeah, that was in 2016, and I was really listening to people like Mike Maloney and Hidden Secrets of Money. You know, that one was really good. And I'm really sad that people like that just don't get Bitcoin. You know, they have a lot of good insight into, I guess, economics, but it's just when it comes to Bitcoin, man, like people like that just get so lost.
Yeah, they just don't get it.
Yeah,
But that has to do with like indoctrination, right? Like, I mean, we were never told, like, look, you grew up in America.
I think for someone like me, being a little bit younger, it might be a little bit easier to grasp new concepts. You know, I think someone like that who's been so ingrained in the system for so long, it takes a little bit more of deprogramming and relearning and stuff like that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Totally agreed.
So 2016 was like a year of me waking up to all of this stuff. In 2017, that was the year I just got married. I was building my freelance career in my hometown, and I was traveling a little bit too, building that up, getting clients and stuff like that. I actually work in the entertainment industry. I do more backstage stuff, and I was really just trying to get out there and do the right thing. And at that time, you know, I was still learning and learning. I was on a work trip somewhere, and you know, I usually never do this. And as I was leaving that work trip, the specific place I was working at had slot machines in it. So, you know, I was thinking, hey, I never really do this. And I certainly am never going to go in the high roller room in a casino and play a slot machine. So let me just try this once. So I took $100 bill and I went in the high roller room, and the machine I was playing, it was a $25 spin. You had to spin $25 to do a spin. So the first one I didn't win anything. The second one I didn't win anything. And on the third try, boom, it went 7-7 triple sign, and I ended up winning like $3,000 and something dollars.
Oh man.
It was really crazy.
That's awesome.
So after that, I had the foresight that I needed to do something with my money, but I didn't have the education to know what to do with it, if that makes sense. So from there, you know, I had a great career, and I had that little, you know, random gain that happened. And I seen a friend on Facebook, and he was posting about a little something called Litecoin. And I didn't know what that was at the time. I started researching it. This guy had a business. He had an e-commerce business, and this was something he was doing on the side, was buying Litecoin, mining Litecoin. So my first actual purchase of any cryptocurrency was in like September of 2017. And I actually purchased like 30 Litecoins when they were like $80. That was my first cryptocurrency transaction. And while it wasn't Bitcoin, it opened my eyes up. Like that was the thing that just thrusted me into the space. And you know, around that time, this is when all the hype is going on. This is when everybody is getting into crypto, getting into Bitcoin. You know, all the scammers are out in full force. All the influencers are out. The Ponzi schemes are pumping out. You know, it's pretty crazy. So that's where my eyes really got opened up to this whole space. And after that is when I started buying my first Bitcoin. But unfortunately, the next step of my journey, I got Ponzi schemed.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it happened to me.
No.
I know. Yeah, I was young, and you know, I wasn't very educated and naive and stuff like that. But like I said in my last episode, man, you know, some of these things, these are the scars, these are the things you got to go through to get to where you are today. And so, you know, I appreciate my mistakes because they were learning curves.
Agreed.
Yeah. And yeah, so it was actually an old friend of mine. You know, that's how they always get you, right? With the with the multi-level marketing
Of
things,
course,
man,
it's a friend.
it's always an old friend. Hey, buddy, how you doing, man? Yeah, and it was actually USI Tech out of all of them.
Oh,
One of the real bad ones. But you know, I used some of that slot machine winnings, and I used some of that for Litecoin, and you know, I started using some of my own money too. And you know, unfortunately, I just got caught up in all that. You know, I realized the greed is what draws you in, and if you want to be a successful hodler of last resort, if you want to be a Bitcoiner, if you want to be successful in that kind of area of long-term investing, you have to get that mindset of like quick gains and stuff out of your head, or you're gonna fail miserably.
I totally agree, and I told you, similar experience. I had similar types of issues happen to me with HYIPs, high yield investment programs.
Okay.
So similar to USI Tech, but you go, you put in money, and then they pay you out like every 3 days or something, and then eventually the site disappears.
Yeah. I think you're just giving them your Bitcoin, and then they're slowly giving you your own Bitcoin back and other people's money. So
that's right.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
It is.
You know, when you don't know anything, or you're naive and stuff like that. But hey, you know,
it gets you.
Yeah. Anyway, caught up in that whole scene, that whole area, that whole market. But you know what? To be completely honest with you, in the back of my mind, like seriously, in the very back of my mind, I knew there was something very different about Bitcoin specifically in regards to like monetary policy, economics, where our society is headed, where the future of money is headed, you know, the economic crises that are going to be coming up. And I knew there was something different about Bitcoin, and it's always captivated me past all of that other garbage. But at the peak of the bull market, I was actually on a work trip somewhere else, and this is when probably all the altcoins were at their peak. Bitcoin was, I think, just finishing its $19,000 run. Dude, I was on this work trip, and I was watching. I didn't have access to my keys or anything, but dude, I was literally watching this portfolio on my screen go up by tens of thousands of dollars. Like it was freaking
insane.
me out when I was at work, dude. Like I was at work, like it was freaking me out, man. And by the time I got back home, everything was already crashing. So I tried to sell my shitcoins as soon as I could. Yeah, it was crazy, man. USI closed down at like the same time. So like, you know, shitcoins were up, USI was down. It was a freaking roller coaster, dude. And I'm so glad to be out of all that. But when Bitcoin started doing its thing, started getting really volatile on the downside, I noticed that pattern that it kept bouncing off of the 6,000 line, you know, that 6,000 support that was for so long. And after it was done, after it kept bouncing off that, I knew that was my time to, you know, start getting back in and really take this thing seriously. And after it dropped down to 3,000, dude, that's literally just when I went all in. I said, screw it, I'm going all in, like no looking back. And I'm totally happy that I did.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that is incredible.
Well, it was just from taking so much time. It was just humbling yourself and just realizing that you were wrong and you made mistakes, and being open to realizing what the truth is. And you know, at least in my opinion, and I know in many others, the truth is Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin is the monetary truth. And it took a while to realize that, but I'm grateful that I realized it at you know, BTC's local bottom in this cycle so far. So
yeah, exactly. And let me ask you this though. So when it got to that point and you came to that realization, was it like is that when you just decided to learn about it? Because you know, there's that point where like a lot of my friends or the people that I got into Bitcoin, you know, when Bitcoin got to that point, they just gave up and stopped paying attention. And for me, it was like, well, wait a second, like this thing isn't dead. Like
Yeah.
it's not going away, and then you
It's
go
alive!
and you exactly. It's not going away, and it doesn't care that we don't care.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then you keep, and then, you know, you keep doing research, and then it just becomes more and more interesting. So is that kind of what happened when it got to that point? Like, did you
When
start
it
to do
got
more
to that
research?
when it got to that point was when I really took it seriously. I mean, I was this whole journey the last, you know, 2 or 3 years, I've always been studying economics and monetary policy and history, Austrian economics, and you know, the truth about Bitcoin and geopolitics and all of this kind of stuff. But I guess at the same time, when I had my shit coins, I guess I was just trying to justify a case of why I could make a gain off of a shit coin. And you know, that's not a right way of thinking. But I always knew there was something different about Bitcoin. But when it hit that low, that's when I really started taking it seriously. And that's really when I put like my life and my future plans on hold to just go all in Bitcoin.
That's absolutely awesome. So okay, so you went all in on Bitcoin, and now here we are, right? Like from that,
And now here I am.
Yeah.
Saint Bitcoin, I've been redeemed.
You know, like went all the way up to 14K, and like now we're back at like what is
Yeah.
it, like 8.5 or something, a little less.
Yeah. Stacking sats, man. I'm
that's
still
right.
stacking sats.
So,
Yeah.
but you also you started your own podcast, right? The BTC Plebe Talk podcast.
BTC Plebe Talk, however
Sorry,
you want to say it.
I'm terrible. I actually, you know what? When I interviewed Optimist Fields, right?
I love that guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. And
Yeah.
like we were discussing that. You know, is it pleb or is it plebe? I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, do your thing, man. Say it however you want.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You know, but
right.
I just feel
Honey Badger don't care.
Exactly, it doesn't. So you started. Why did you start your own podcast?
So after all of this whole journey, getting to where I am today, being all in on Bitcoin, I just realized I really have a passion for Bitcoin, and not only that, outside in my personal life. You know, I said earlier in the beginning of this episode that I'm a Christian, so I have a passion for people also. So I really enjoy engaging with people, getting to hear from other people, making friends and stuff like that. And I thought a podcast would be a great way to do that. And actually, shout out to Dr. Bitcoin. You know, Dr. Bitcoin was actually the person that encouraged me to do something other than stacking sats. So I'm grateful for that.
That, you know what, and that's absolutely amazing, because a lot of people, and that's actually something I mentioned in a lot of my first episodes when I was still a partial shitcoiner and I was really just getting into Bitcoin only, but I still had some shitcoins I hadn't gotten rid of. But you know, like that was a big thing for me. You know, about not, you know, like you're not just because you can't program doesn't mean that you can't contribute to Bitcoin. And I think a lot of people, they end up feeling that way, because when you come on, we're not talking crypto Twitter, right? Because crypto Twitter is like totally different. That's like a whole bunch of shit coining, and like it just,
those guys.
I mean, it's not like I was part of that too, and like it's just a whole bunch of shilling to each other.
Yeah. Oh,
but
no
like
doubt.
but like Bitcoin Twitter has, like, I find a lot of, you know, like obviously like a lot of like there's like ethical conversations about Bitcoin, and you know, it's like philosophical conversations about Bitcoin, and then you have people discussing, you know, vulnerabilities and stuff like that. It gets like very technical, and then you're like sitting there like, man, how do I, you know, these guys are like, these people, you know, these people have a lot to say, and it's very meticulous. Like, how do I contribute to this space?
Yeah, and
You
me
know?
and you were talking about this a little bit earlier, like especially with Bitcoin Pleb Talk. A lot of these conversations that we have, yes, like they're casual and entertaining and they're fun and stuff like that. They are informative, but you know, casual and entertaining. A lot of these conversations, you know, that we're having, even one like this, you can't have these conversations with the normie people around you that don't get it yet. So while to us it might be, you know, an entertaining and fun conversation, to other people listening, it's actually very valuable to them. So I realize that how powerful words are in conversation.
Yeah, they really are. And I think it's also, to your point, it's also encouraging, right? I'd like to think that, people who thought that all they could do was stack sats, not that that's not good, that's obviously great, but, that didn't think they could contribute. I'd like to think that, I've given them some type of hope to say, and even in your case also have given them some type of hope to say, hey, you know what? Like maybe I can contribute in a different way,
Yeah. All of these average everyday people that, don't have a huge following, that don't have the popularity, a lot of them have extremely good things to say. Their opinions are very valuable and they have a voice and stuff like that, but it doesn't always get to be heard. So these podcasts and stuff like that really help bring that out. And it really helps lift people up and encourage people and inspire them to do great things also.
So actually, let's talk about that, because the BTC Pleb or Plebe Talk podcast. If I understand it correctly, you're specifically like trying to get chats with with fellow plebes, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think that's what's really amazing, right? Like a lot of people, I've also interviewed some influencers as well. I've got some big names on my podcast as well, but I find that some of the most surprising conversations have been with actually the non-influencers, right? Like the fellow plebes.
Yeah, no doubt. There's a ton of people that have helped me along my way, in my journey of becoming more sovereign over my finances and studying Bitcoin and all that good stuff. The podcast really helped me out getting over this learning curve. I'm really appreciative of them. Me and you talked about Tales from the Crypt. That's probably one of the best ones out there, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
Tales from the Crypt has just amazing content. I really like Citizen Podcast. I like Stephen Livera, anything with Trace, and I like your podcast too. So it's just great learning content out there.
Sorry, for Citizen though, you said it's Citizen Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool. Okay.
Yeah, Brady.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And all that stuff is great, man. There's certain Bitcoiners that have really helped me along in my journey. Just like Nick said in my first episode, Psychedelic El Barto, shout out to Barto. He's always there with great resources for, I guess, new Bitcoiners, people who are learning about this technology, the space, economics. Barto always has great content. Dieter Bob is actually somebody that I really get to talk to on a daily basis. I love his outlook and I love his no BS take on this space. So that's really cool.
Cool.
I love the pleb chats, actually getting to talk to all of these Bitcoiners. There's a couple Telegram groups that have a bunch of Bitcoin plebs in them. And, on a daily basis, I get to talk to people like Rory, My Live in Truth, Jamie Lim, and even you, Coin Icarus. And you guys are all great people, like great outlooks on life, like great money habits, values and stuff like that. And I'm just excited to see all of these different types of people in the Bitcoin space.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
This is some great shout outs, man. Yeah, those are definitely like a lot of the people that I end up chatting with as well. So it's really cool. Yeah.
Dr. Bitcoin helped me out a lot. Dieter Bob helped me out a lot. And actually, one of the first Bitcoin plebs that I ever talked to is actually American Hodl. And I've been talking to him a lot. And he's a cool dude, too. I love his
Mr.
stacking.
Mr. 615.
Mr. 615. Yeah, that guy. No, he's a cool dude. I've gotten to chat with him a lot. Funny story. He's actually the only Bitcoin pleb that knows who I am in real life.
Oh, my gosh.
It's a really funny coincidence, but we have a couple similarities in our personal life that we found out from conversations and stuff like that. So he's the only one that knows who Saint Bitcoin is. All of the people in my real life interactions and work and goings and stuff like that, they have no clue what I do on Twitter and my podcast and stuff like that.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so that's actually that's interesting, right? That leads into our conversation on Opsec, right? That's really interesting. So you manage to keep that separation. I personally don't. I don't keep that separation fully, I would say. Like, there's like at least 5 or 6 people at work that know my podcast and stuff like that. There's like,
Nice.
yeah, but it's like they're all part of like, we have a Bitcoin kind of meetup at work.
Oh, hey, yeah,
but
that's pretty cool.
But it's not as great. Like, it's trust me, it's a sad excuse for a meetup. Like, we try so hard, but like, it's like you're sitting there at work and we're like 4 or 5 people, and out of like those people, there's only a couple of us that actually have Bitcoin. So,
well, so like with me in my personal life, I think my wife, my parents, and one cousin are the only people know that I have a Bitcoin Twitter and a Bitcoin podcast. Awesome. Right. So I keep it like, I talk to all my coworkers about Bitcoin and stuff like that. Like, they all think I'm crazy, but
that's awesome.
I'm always known as like the Bitcoin guy and the Jesus guy. Like those are the 2 things. Like, oh, there's the Bitcoin Jesus dude coming.
Oh my gosh.
And but I keep that Opsec very, I guess, separated. So that's why I think it's extremely funny that there's this American HODL guy in the middle that knows who I am.
It is. But you see how small world it is?
Dude, it's crazy, man. It's a real small world. Yeah.
It's so insane. It really is. Yeah. Okay, so you know what? Something I saw today, I wasn't really planning on discussing, but I saw on Twitter, I think it was Matt Odell that either commented on it or retweeted on it. It was a lady, Michelle Phan, who I personally did not know before that tweet, and I still really don't know much about. She's like a very successful YouTube personality.
Yeah. She's like, I think she was like a YouTube makeup kind of girl, something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but I know who you're talking about.
So, okay, so and again, I don't know the full context of this, but the clip showed her explaining in very simply what Bitcoin is and how it works, and it was absolutely amazing. Like, I don't know how, obviously I don't know how technical she is or not and whatever, but like, to hear somebody that you wouldn't expect, that's not really what we consider in our space, to be able to explain it so easily and so well, that goes to the point of narrative compression. Right? Like that was something that Dan Held actually talked about, that once the narrative gets compressed enough, right? Once we get that perfect story, that perfect narrative, like that's when we, that's when we go, slowly then all at once, right?
So my wife was actually listening to a YouTube video by that same lady.
Oh, cool.
It had to be maybe 2 months ago, My wife sees all the Bitcoin stuff I do, and obviously she can't get away from it. So she hears about all of it, and she knows enough to get it. She knows enough to understand why we need Bitcoin, why Bitcoin's the future of money, and what basic problems are wrong in our economics. But that's about as far as she goes. And she was actually listening to a YouTube video by that lady like 2 months ago. And she was so excited to show it to me because the lady was talking about Bitcoin and how she's more excited about Bitcoin than her actual, business that she's had for a while. And it really clicked in my wife's head. And, it's cool that someone like that lady is reaching a group of people who, might not be very interested in finances or economics or Bitcoin for that matter.
So the question now becomes, has Mrs. Saint Bitcoin tumbled down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, she's been tumbling down the rabbit hole for a while. I think it would be really funny because she has a lot of funny takes on shitcoins and stuff like that. So I think it'd be really funny to like do an interview with my own wife one day.
That'd be awesome. Actually, that's a great idea. I never thought of that. Yeah. Because my wife also, same type of thing, she obviously, unfortunately, ends up hearing my hour-long, like many conversations about Bitcoin all the time. And of course, it becomes like anybody mentions it at a get-together and she knows like, okay, that's it. He's about to start a conversation that doesn't stop, So, So anyways, yeah, it's like to your point, it's like partially tumbling down the rabbit hole. But I think in her case, when it really clicked is when I brought her to the MIT Bitcoin Expo. She installed a Coinomi wallet, and they sent her 250,000 sats.
Really?
And at the time it was worth, remember back in that time, it was like March 19th.
Okay.
So we were like, I don't know, maybe 4K, something like that. So we hadn't started the run, right?
Yeah.
To 14. So she got those 250K sats, and then all of a sudden she goes back to look at it, and it's worth like $13.25. And she's like,
nice.
Oh my gosh. I'm like,
number go
up. I'm like, it's what it does. No.
Yeah.
But I explained to her, I'm like, it was, like it finally clicked to her, like at least the not just the value proposition, but she began to understand. And actually at that point she got a Cash App, installed, got the Cash App, and started to like stack sats traditionally,
Yeah, man.
So
I really appreciate guys that include their wives in and stuff like that. Like, you're married and you're going to spend the rest of your life together. So, when you include your wife and stuff like that, it's cool to work together as a team.
Yeah, exactly. And vice versa, like,
yeah.
I'll go and do like a lot of the stuff, that she enjoys doing, like going to the museum and stuff like that, or going to see, different operas, that like she enjoys. But like at the same time, it's like, to your point, it's good to have that, that balance. It's important to be engaged in each other's lives,
Oh yeah, man. If you end up, marrying your best friend, you're set.
Yeah, it totally agreed. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So on this path of like enlightenment and whatnot, talking about values.
Okay.
We're gonna move over to the if you could suggest any books to read to the listeners.
Ooh.
Yeah, books.
Yeah.
Or
nice.
a book or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm going to be completely honest with you, man.
Uh-oh.
I am not extremely big on reading books, but
that's okay.
I think the last Bitcoin book I bought was The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean, and obviously that's a great book.
Yeah. You have to have that.
Yeah.
It's a staple for Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
You got to put that one in your tool belt. And, I'm actually excited about, I want to find somebody that I could pass that book down to, someone who is, really interested. I want to be able to pass it down to them. The book that I read the most, to be completely honest with you, is I read the Bible. That is my go-to book.
Cool.
And I have learned so many similarities between like biblical faith and the biblical story and like Bitcoin and stuff like that. One of the things I was talking to you about earlier is I see the prophets from the Old Testament and the disciples from the New Testament and the early believers and stuff like that. I see them as the original hodlers of last resorts and the original they're the original maximalists. They believe that Jesus was the way and that everything else was false and garbage, and they were willing to die for that belief. And I see the hodlers of last resort. They believe that Bitcoin is the truth. Bitcoin is the evolution of money. It's the greatest form of money, and all of these other things are imposters, and they're not willing to give up that belief for anything. So coming from a spiritual background and seeing how these Bitcoiners operate, it was kind of easy for me to understand that kind of mindset.
I think that's really incredible. The the parallel that that you're drawing between the Bible and the Bitcoiners and the original the apostles. I think that is absolutely awesome. Have you ever read any of the stuff from like Brian Quidham, who like the Bitcoin mushroom guy? Who talks about okay, so he kind of equates like Bitcoin to fungi.
Okay.
So he does that, and like it's really interesting. Like I love to see people, like, because you see, like, so based on what you're explaining, right, obviously like the Bible, spirituality, all this is very important to you. It touches you at a core level, and so Bitcoin reaches you, I believe, based on what you're explaining, it's reaching you at that same level for what it is.
Yes,
it's
totally.
like, and that's what's beautiful about Bitcoin, right? Like we always read, we always end up seeing this, right? You don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you.
Oh, no doubt.
And it's like, and that's what ends up happening, is that you end up incorporating it into what you had, and you end up drawing the similarities from it into what you were already into. It's really incredible.
Yeah. You know, I think it's good to be well-rounded, man. I have a good sense of spirituality. So I'm sovereign in my spirituality. I am a gun owner and I know how to protect myself. So I'm sovereign over my person. And I have Bitcoin with my private keys. So I'm sovereign over my finances.
I think that's absolutely amazing, man. Very, very cool. Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely something that, you know, like when we were discussing it completely, you know, I put out a tweet earlier, I think yesterday, about where I was in 2018, you know, and where I am today. And
even just a year's time, man. A year feels
exactly
like a lifetime sometimes,
doesn't it?
Know?
And like, isn't it, in terms of like what in terms of things that have changed? I mean,
yeah.
I went back to go look at your profile. I saw that you joined in 2018. I'm like, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that I only met you like a month ago or something, or I think it was like, but it feels like so much longer.
I think we've been on Twitter. I think we've had each other's Twitter profiles for a while, but we never really started like talking more like friends up until maybe like a month ago.
That's right. Yeah. See, exactly.
It's pretty crazy, man. It feels like it. But see, here's the thing, man. You know, when you meet good people, when you meet genuine people, it feels like you've known each other for a while.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Okay. So you read the Bible, but what about any movies, right? Like, people always like to, I forget who it was that put out this tweet a while back. It may have been Jameson Locke.
Okay.
But something about, like, you know, I guess, you know, something to the extent of, you know, what movie like best depicts, you know, the way that, you know, that we're going with Bitcoin. You know, like some people choose the movie like Tron or you know, something like that.
I just see if I could pick any movie, you know, even though I'm a young person, I'm a fan of The Warriors. I really love the movie The Warriors, and I see The Warriors as Bitcoin. You know, they're trying to make the Warriors are trying to make their journey back home, back to Coney Island, and they have all these challenges and all these struggles along the way, and like all these different people attacking them. So they get back home. So like I see the Warriors as Bitcoin on and Coney Island is like hyper Bitcoinization, and it's on its journey there.
That's awesome. No, it does. It does. If you think about it, like, and I think I obviously, I don't want to misquote anybody, but you know, Bitcoin is often compared to the hero's quest. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
You know, it's like it's the total underdog that everyone expects that will just go away, but it just won't.
Yeah.
You
definitely.
know, so. Oh man. Anyways, so look, it's been totally amazing talking with you.
Dude, I'm super grateful for this conversation, man. Like, we should definitely have more.
Oh, we will. It's been absolutely amazing having you on. So look, if anybody wants to get in touch with Saint Bitcoin, what's the best way of reaching you?
The best way of reaching me is on my Twitter. It's Saint_Bitcoin. And my podcast episode is BTC Pleb Talk. And my goal for that is to come out with 1 to 2 episodes every month, you know, depending on life's challenges and busyness and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to a lot of real genuine conversations with some really cool and good people.
That's fantastic, man. So look, I'm gonna put your details in the show notes for the podcast, and where people could reach you on Twitter.
Sweet. Yeah, and make sure you tag all of the people that we shouted out.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually going to get the list from you after the show. So
nice.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and we're going to talk soon.
Yeah.
I hope everybody enjoyed my amazing conversation with Saint Bitcoin. I really had a great time talking to him. He's super cool. So, you know, like I said, all of his info is going to be in the show notes, and of course, if you want to reach me on Twitter or Telegram, I'm at Coinicarus. My new email now is funwithbitcoin@protonmail.com. And yeah, like I said, you know, check out the merch shop at moedarags.com. Keep hodling, stacking sats, and I'll catch you all next time.